everyone. Welcome to the Safe House, brought to you by the SafeHouse Initiative. I'm Jeff Edwards, co-chair of the SafeHouse Initiative, and your host for today's podcast. We have a very exciting program for you today. Today, Alex's guest is John Sharpe. Welcome to the Safe House, John. Hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. Appreciate it. So again, John Sharpe, pleasure to be here. I have been in cybersecurity now for going on 12 plus years. Started off in active duty Air Force with the military. Wound up doing network and server administration, transitioning into the cyber warfare career field. Finished up 6 years there total. Transitioned out to work with several different MSSPs throughout various stages and various roles, from analyst all the way up through team lead and SOC manager, and currently find myself today within a Fortune 100 company as their global security operations center senior manager and leading that whole response for over 140,000 colleagues. So
how did you come across Alex? How did you meet Alex? Just curious.
Sure thing. So Alex and I had the pleasure of working together at one of the MSSPs that I was working for, where he was one of the analysts on the team and I was his acting team lead at the time when I stepped in.
Nice. Well, anyway, really a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for your time and your contributions. So, Alex, what do we have in store today with John?
Sure. And firstly, before I even go into what we're doing today, I just want to say thank you so much for your service, John. And thank you for being one of the most resonating leaders that I've ever had within the industry, because it sort of led my career up to where I'm at today. So appreciate that.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
So we're talking today on flaw number 7, Jeff, and the flaw is talking about static plans versus dynamic plans. Cyber threat actors are not static, and the incident response realm is not static. It's extremely dynamic. So the failure to incorporate these advancements into the incident response plans through different technologies or different vulnerabilities that are going on, or just different things that happen within the industry, could put a big dark spot on your plan and basically put them out of date. And you may as well just take that plan, throw them into your drawer, and hope to God nothing bad happens. And so it's really important that we should have these dynamic plans out there. And so today I would love to hear a little bit about your experience of incident response plans, and when you have that piece of paper, and what it would feel like if you would have had something that was more dynamic in those incidents.
Yeah, incident response plans are I mean, that's the backbone, and I think the key part to having that plan is to understand your documentation structure and how you operate. For everyone, it's different. I've seen some incident response plans that read more like playbooks at times. I've seen some that are high-level documents that continue to kind of lay the flow and the groundwork for the following documentation. But it depends on your size, your business, your arena, and kind of how your team operates and how you build out and structure. I think you hit the nail on the head there with being dynamic, because too often you find yourselves in a situation responding to an incident that nobody could have planned for and nobody could have foreseen. So you need to craft them in a way that is flexible for you to be able to adjust on the fly. Understanding your stakeholders, understanding your process is going to be the key to making that thing successful for your organization.
Yeah. So do you have any life experiences where the response plan went awry because the plan just didn't incorporate a incident that was going on? It was related to it, let's say a ransomware case, but it didn't have like data extortion or data exfiltration.
Yeah, again, that's one of those situations where you gotta pay to play here, and you're only as good as how you practice and as you walk through these scenarios. So found myself in a situation previously where there was definitely a gap. The scenario at hand was more so around third-party risks, the inherent trust between the company I was working for and one of their vendors, and that vendor had been compromised through one of their vendors, which kind of led to this weird scenario of almost compromise through relationship where a lot of the power is taken out of your hands. So in that scenario there, it was something that was not really well planned for. So we had to quickly adjust on the fly and start figuring out all right, well, what data is at stake here? What damage are we looking at from a company perspective to start to understand the scope, the threat, the severity? This way we can start briefing and running through our plan, which your stakeholders, depending on, again, what you do, could be legal, could be data privacy. You could be talking contracts and relations, government contracts and relations. There's a lot of various stakeholders there. So it quickly, I don't want to say got out of hand, but it quickly became more of an audible than a tried and true process that we practiced prior.
Wow. And what would you have done differently in the response plan that would have smoothed out the course here and helped you as the incident commander through this incident in ensuring that everyone was notified, everyone was aware of what was going on and how to communicate with them?
Sure. I think one of the key parts for an IRP to be successful is for you to have a constant kind of evolution process. At the end of everything, you should be doing an after action, a hot wash, whatever you like calling it, and have that baked into the process where anytime you identify a gap, yourself as the incident commander, the folks that you work with are taking notes of maybe a misstep or a miscalculation or something that you weren't expecting that came out of left field. This way, after everything is said and done and the dust has settled, you can talk about what went well, what did not go well, and how do you plan for the next scenario should this arise again. In that process was key because it started us going down the path of not just fixing the IRP to be more fluid and to start accounting for scenarios like this as that risk kind of continues to expand, but also to really start accounting for existing process. When we're evaluating these vendors moving forward, what are we taking into consideration? What do our questionnaires look like? It really helps you start to evolve your existing process, which then forces you to evolve your IRP as well.
It's so interesting. And so going through this incident live helps you refine the incident response plan for the future. And so the idea of a modern threat scenario based tabletop would probably be very helpful, right?
Correct. 100%. And again, you can only practice with the scenarios and stuff that you've experienced. You can stay abreast of ongoing threats and incidents, but you can never be prepared for everything. So that's where building that fluidity into the process helps. Being able to call that audible, to have your incident responders, your incident staff, your security teams, always thinking in that mindset of, again, there's no pride, there's no shame in the game. Mistakes happen, things get overlooked, but as long as you're willing to call a spade, identify the areas, and work towards making that a better process at the end, that's key to navigating these things as they come up. But then taking these examples and then capturing the key notables and then talking about advancing that next tabletop. Maybe you've got a tabletop scenario list where you're planned out for the next 18 months. Maybe this becomes one that you shuffle things around to get it closer to the now time frame and talk about something that's a little bit more fresh. Maybe make your board of advisors or whomever else is the target of this tabletop a little bit more aware of the day-to-day threats and the things you're seeing. This way you can help explain the risk and the severity to that level to help you pivot and continue to bolster your security program as a whole.
I love that. And I don't like to bring up products, but in this case, I love to talk about one solution that does an amazing job with attack surface scenario-based tabletops. And that's a solution called OnDefend. I'm not trying to sell it here, Jeff. I'm just saying it's a really cool product that will take all of their incident response knowledge and expertise and rebuild brand new scenarios for you based off of live incidents that have happened and constantly are just giving new incident response scenarios for people to plan against. And I think that's throughout the whole industry. There are many products out there that do this. I think that's an amazing idea that you took that response information, tabletop against it, and then updated your plan. And then you took the next tabletop exercise for business email compromise. And whatever you did to change up the scenario gave you more information on where the weaknesses were within the plan to then update it.
I would agree. I say this jokingly based on our history, but there's only so many times you can run through emo tabletops and response mechanisms before it gets old and stale. So staying up to date is definitely the best way possible. I have not interfaced with that platform, but I'll definitely take a look.
I mean, there are so many out there, and I don't mean to just go with one name. I just was talking to them yesterday, and they were talking about this brand new scenario. And then the scenario came up in another incident that I'm dealing with. And I'm like, what the heck? How did they even think about this? And it's because they saw it in another response effort that they brought this up in their scenario. So I thought that was really cool. One last question, and I think this is it's gonna be a little bit interesting because I want to see how you answer it as an expert and a subject matter expert on the SOC side. What are the challenges that you see on the SOC side in helping out the incident response efforts and ensuring your plan is up to date? What are things that you can do to update your SOC efforts to help out the response efforts?
Sure. I think one of the differentiators, the way I always look at things, and again, coming from the MSSP, managed services background, helps with this. But I always tend to look at things as I'm providing a service. Who are my customers? In my mind, I might be managing the SOC and running the global SOC, but my IR team, my vulnerability management team, my pen test team, all of these teams, they're still customers of mine. I still have critical data and information that comes in through my operation that I need to get to them to make sure that their programs are up to date, efficient, and executing the way they should, that they're aware of the latest and greatest things that we're seeing, either that are being reported up through end users, through network solutions and tooling, whatever the case may be. I think that's a huge part of it. And understanding the, the levers and the switches that you have to pull. Going back to the IRP piece that we're talking about and staying fluid, one of the things that I think is critical for that is for that to be a high-level document and where you're not digging through and starting to get in the weeds with process and steps and kind of laying the land of the who's who and how to engage. This way, if there's certain triggers, who are your key stakeholders? Are you talking to data privacy? Are you talking to your legal teams from a cyber response perspective? Are you engaging when to engage and how to engage? Those things are all critical because those relationships, the more that they're practiced, the more that they're there and everyone is aware of it, the quicker those escalations flow, your times to respond drop drastically, and treating them like customers will start to get that muscle memory. This way, your operators that are in the seat day in and day out, they know, oh, this triggered. I'm going to go reach out to, Jeff over in the IR side of the house because I've seen this before. I've worked with him. This looks like something we need to flag up real quick. Building that muscle memory in your team and making sure that they understand, practice like you play, escalations, how to get that flows going at the simplest levels really helps set you up for success when it's game time.
I love that. And it sets us up for next week's episode too. And it also talks about all 6 of the episodes we just discussed. Everything from knowing who we need to talk to, having that plan in place, communicating with legal, leveraging your incident response providers, your third-party providers. Those were the episodes we just talked about. And I did not tell John to say that. And so you saying that just validates those first 6. So thank you for that.
True.
Alex, you are a character, my friend. Hey, John, we always ask our guests, if our audience is going to do one thing today, what would that one thing be for them to improve their position?
Sure. I definitely think when you look through the lens of service delivery, regardless of your organization, it helps to keep you and your team honest with what you do well, what you don't do well, and where you can improve, and having that constant lens of continually learning, continually trying to be the best version you can really helps when it comes to this incident response piece. The more that you're aware of your gaps, the better you can defend and prepare and layer those defense and depth strategies. So having the right conversations with the right folks on your teams, both internal, external, is critical.
Yeah, and then always remember, practice like you play. I love that.
This is episode 3 in a row where they answered your question before you can ask your question.
I'm catching on, and you're getting extremely smart guests to join us. So, hey, John, thank you so much for all your contributions, and what a great time it's been to learn from you.
I appreciate the invite, Alex. Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Alex, you alluded to what we're going to venture into next week.
Yeah, so we just talked about, is your plan ready for the modern day attack? And next week, we're going to be talking about how to prepare for the worst case scenario with Matt Lee from PAX 8. And we're going to get some really cool information related to how you can start considering the worst case scenario and start building out your response plan to ensure resilience in times of those worst case scenarios, everything from insider threat to his worst nightmare. And we're going to have some really good conversation around that next week. So I'm really excited to have him on.
Excellent. Well, Alex, as always, a great job. And John, a pleasure. And thank you ever so much to John Sharpe for his contributions to the SafeHouse Initiative. We do appreciate it. And you've helped a lot of people today.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to tuning in next week.
That's our podcast for today. I'm Jeff Edwards for the SafeHouse Initiative. Thanks for joining us. And remember, be safe, be resilient, and be kind to each other. For more information about the SafeHouse Initiative, please use your mobile device to scan the QR code on the screen or send us an email at info@safehouseinitiative.org or visit us on our website, safehouseinitiative.org. We look forward to hearing from you.